All right, so today what we're going to do in section 2B is we're going to talk a little bit about odd and even numbers. Now, I know that you know what odd and even numbers are, but we're going to talk a little bit about them just briefly, because even though you might know what odd and even numbers mean, you might not recognize some of the patterns that happen because of odd and even numbers. Now, they're not going to be super helpful in that they're not going to change your life, trust me. But it can make your life a little bit easier in that, wouldn't it be nice if you had the right answer at the end without having to check? Yeah? So it's that kind of thing. It just makes your life a little easier if you know some of these facts. Okay? First one. An even number. Remember the little hashtag is the symbol for number. An even number is any number that will divide by 2. So any number that will divide by 2 is considered to be an even number. Okay? And they end in 0, 2, 4, 6, or 8. So any number that ends in 0, 2, 4, 6, or 8 is automatically even. Right? An odd number is simply any number. An odd number is any number that is not even. So any number that's not even must by default be odd. So many times you're going to see things defined that way. If it's not one thing, then it has to be the other. Okay? All right. And these numbers end in 1, 3, 5, 7, or 9. Okay? Question. All right, here we go. So what we're going to do then is we're going to talk a little bit about, so that's my next point. Every whole number is either odd or even. Every whole number has to be either odd or even, no matter what.
What about 0?
0 ends in what?
0.
Therefore it is.
Even.
It'll divide by 2, but when you divide it by 2, you get 0.
What's
Okay, shh, gentlemen. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about a few properties of odd and even numbers that, again, are not that big of a deal, but it will help just give you broaden your understanding of some things in mathematics. And the first one I want to talk about is something called consecutive numbers. Consecutive means one right after another, right? Well, if numbers are consecutive and they're even, that's easy. We could just divide them in half and work from there. But with odd numbers, sometimes it's a little more confusing. But, so, to find 2 consecutive odd numbers that add to make a given number. So, you'll see this problem a lot in those tests where they're testing your understanding. It'll say, find 2 consecutive odd numbers that add to give whatever, some number. Okay? And so this process is just to deepen your understanding, and it's really easy. So what you're going to do is first divide the number in half. So So in other words, divide it by 2. Now when you divide it by 2, you're going to get 2 even numbers. Because if it divides by 2, that means it was even to start with. So we have to do a little more math. We'll subtract 1 from the first number. And it doesn't matter which one you call the first number, because if you divide them in half, what do you know about the 2 numbers? They're going to be the same, aren't they? If you divide a number in half, you get two halves, which mean 2 pieces that are the same size. So you just pick one of them and subtract a 1 from it. And the second one, then, you're going to add 1 to the other number. Sorry, it's a little crowded there, but you can get it. Okay? Sir. Now, there are other things that we can talk about sums. Okay? The sum of two even numbers or 2 odd numbers is always even. So if you have 2 even numbers and you add them together, you always get an even. If you have 2 odd numbers and add them together, you always get an even. Pretty different, yeah? So 2 plus 4, those are both even. 2 plus 4 is 6. And 3 plus 5 is 8. You see that works every time. Okay? Now, however, the sum of an even and odd is always odd. Every time. Okay? There's a similar rule for products. The product, what does it mean when I say product? What operation is that? Multiplication, exactly. Good. The product of any even numbers, and I say any even numbers because it doesn't matter how many of them you have. You could have 10 even numbers. Wouldn't matter. The product of any even numbers is always even. You can't multiply and change. And similarly, the product of any odd numbers is always odd.